on? Blossom is back, and welcome back to another episode of Top Drives. Today is a very special day because I've wanted to make this video for a long time. This is one of my biggest dreams in Top Drives, and that is the Blosspack. Yes, what if, okay? You know how we've had the return of Call of the Wild, okay? What if Hutch one day ran out of special tags to make? I mean, that's not really gonna happen because there are a million of special tags you can make, but what if? What if one day Hutch gave the creators, the influencers, their own special tags with their own special events? This has been like my biggest dream since like 2019, man. I've always wanted this to happen, man. Like, what if I had like my own pick? Like, I had my own team favorite pack, you know, the Blosspack, or Android Fanatic had his favorites, or CMG had his favorites. Like, CMG could have a pack which would have the Ford GT, Android Fanatic could have a pack which has the Acura NSX, and I would have a pack that obviously has, you know, Hollywood. So obviously I've wanted to make this video for a while. What if a Blosspack existed? What would be the cars that you would see in the Blosspack? I guarantee you, some of them you could not predict. But if you want to play this game, comment down below before you watch the rest of the videos. What cars would you expect to be in the so-called Blosspack? So, in the Blosspack, if it ever existed, these would be my top picks, my top choices of basically channel favorites and my favorites. So, in the Blosspack, you can expect 5 commons, 7 uncommons, 7 rares, 10 super rares, 13 ultra rares, 10 epics, and 9 legendaries. So it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be fun. There are gonna be some prize cards in here as well. So not all these numbers are what you can unpack. I'm pretty sure like the Plymouth Superbird, you can't unpack that. But if you own it, hey, that's another card that you have in the Blosspack collection. But first of all, let me show you, because you would have seen in the thumbnail, the beautiful pack itself. This is what I imagine the Blosspack to look like. As you can see, the thumbnail card is indeed Hollywood. And once again, man, I mean, this is just a beautiful pack. It's just a beautiful pack. And you know, once again, shout out to my man Lucas. Okay, Lucas, if you want to check him out, this dude is super talented, and he made this pack for me. That takes a real Photoshop skill. I know how to use Photoshop, but I don't know how to use it as well as that. Okay, so shout out to my man Lucas. He made that. This is his Instagram. Go check it out. We'll have the link in the description below as well. Man is just amazing. Man is just fantastic, so skilled, kind-hearted, one of the best people I've ever met. But without further ado, let's get into the Blosspack. Let's get into the content. So we're gonna start off with commons. The first common is indeed the Volkswagen Up. Yes, we are starting off the Blossom pack with one of his most hated brands of all time. So you might be thinking, why is the Volkswagen Up in Blossom's Blosspack? Well, the main thing is this was the only common in the game where I had to spend like 50,000 cash to try and get. Yes, I remember I was about to meet up with one of my friends. This was back in New York. We had some dinner plans, but I was running late because on the way of me walking from my apartment to a workplace, I was trying to unpack the Volkswagen Up. In fact, I was trying to get this car all day because it was like the key car for like a pre-eliminations, and I needed the Volkswagen Up so I could fit in some really high RQ legends that I had in order to win the carbon fiber. In the end, I opened like God knows how many plastic packs. I spent like between 50 to 80k just trying to get the Volkswagen Up. And yes, I got it, but I was late to dinner because I was walking a lot slower to her workplace, and I was walking a lot slower because I was staring at my phone trying to get a Volkswagen Up from opening plastic packs over and over. It wasn't a fun experience, but because it kind of has this like stigma with me now, it has to be in the Blosspack. Now, next up is the Pontiac Firebird. This is the second common that you would get from the Blosspack. The main reason is because it's kind of just the car that was modeled after, or it was influenced, like Kit. Kit was influenced by the Pontiac Firebird. If you don't know, Kit is the star car from Knight Rider. And Knight Rider, you may not know, is my favorite show when I was a kid. I know, I was pretty weird. I didn't watch like Tom and Jerry or Mickey Mouse or Phineas and Ferb. I did watch Phineas and Ferb, but I didn't watch every season of Phineas and Ferb. No, it was Knight Rider. Okay, alright. I did watch Star Wars: The Clone Wars. That's my favorite animated show of all time. But my favorite like show growing up that had a car in it was definitely Knight Rider. And so the Pontiac Firebird, the Pontiac Trans Am just had to be in here. So moving on, the next one is the Opel GT. Why? Because this was the first ever German Renaissance, the first ever great exhibition car I've ever unpacked. And it's a pretty good comment as well, so I was like, you know what, I'm gonna add it. Next is the Jaguar SS100. The only reason why it's in here is because Blossom loves his muscle cars, and Blossom loves his antique cars, his vintage cars, his classic cars, and that's why I have the Jag SS100. The last comment that I have in here is indeed the Dodge Monaco. Why? It's because it's kind of like the first common that I ever had max that I wanted to max. Okay, if you remember, when I first started my top drives journey, I hated the low rarities. I had like 2 rares, 1 uncommon, which is also in this pack, and like 3 commons. And the only reason why I maxed out those commons was because I needed to for some kind of event. Like the game forced me to max them, especially back then when clubs didn't exist. You didn't really need commons, right? But when the Dodge Monaco came into the game, boom, that was the first common where I was like, okay, I'm actually gonna max this because I really like it. And also, it's modeled after Tex from Cars, Disney Pixar Cars. I think Tex is like a mix of the Dodge Monaco and some kind of Cadillac, you know? But like, it doesn't matter, you know? I love this car. I love the design, the color, and it, like I said, it reminds me of Tex, who is King's agent. And the King, aka Strip Weathers, is like my favorite character from Cars, which is also my favorite movie of all time. So yes, the Dodge Monaco had to make it. Also, did I say it was a Dodge? Because it's a Dodge. Anyway, moving on to uncommons now. We have 7 uncommons in the Blosspack. First one is a Mercedes-Benz 300 SL. You know me, I love Mercedes-Benz. I love vintage cars. And I even have a Patreon tier named after the Mercedes 300 SL. I love this car. I do. Next up is the Maserati Indy. I love this car. I love the picture that you chose. I think this is a beautiful car, a beautiful picture, red and black. You know, 2 of my favorite colors in the whole entire world, red, black, and purple. Purple isn't in here, but I'm gonna let it slide, okay? Maserati Indy, it's a good looking car, it's a good looking picture, and I'm happy that it doesn't have that in the shadows, because most muscle cars and classic cars and top drives, Hutch feels inclined to give them a black and white picture. I get it, the car's old, but like, color pictures are just way better. They hit different, and I'm happy that they didn't mess up the Maserati Indy. I love this car. Also, it's from 1969, a very special year for me, 1969, because not only my favorite car of all time is from 1969, my mom was also born in 1969, and she's one of my favorite human beings of all time. So double meaning there, you know. Next up is the Ford Mustang Boss 302. What can I say? It's a muscle car. I love it. And then next up is the Ford Mustang 289. You know how I said earlier with the commons that the Dodge Monaco was like the only like common I wanted to max? Well, the Ford Mustang 289 was the only uncommon I wanted to max back in the early game. This was like the only like muscle car. This and like the Camaro Z28. But I wasn't really a fan of the Camaro Z28. Not a fan of that generation, but I was a huge fan of the 66 Mustang. In fact, I had 2 of these max. One of it was 699. God bless the 699 Mustang. I sold that because it was the wrong fuse, but I did replace it, so now I still have 2, but they're both 969 now. I sold the 699 one because it was just absolutely cursed. Moving on is the Chevrolet S10 Extreme. This is a Blossom choice car, one of my favorites. I have 4 of these max in my garage, and it's one of my most used uncommons, and for that reason alone, it makes the list. Moving on is the Aston Martin DB5. This was my favorite Aston Martin of all time before the introduction of the DBS Superleggera. So before the Superleggera, the DB5 was my favorite Aston Martin of all time, and that means that's my favorite car from my second favorite brand of all time. You know I had to add that. I mean, I think it's one of the most beautiful cars ever made as well, and it even has the James Bond 007 car plate. I mean, what more can you ask from this? This is a fantastic card. Next up is the Dodge Challenger TA. Now, obviously, we're gonna have our Chargers. We're gonna need to have our Challengers as well. You know me, Blossom. I'm a Mopar guy, so I gotta add the Challenger TA. Next up, we move on to the rares. There are 7 rares to choose from, so let's begin with the Pontiac Fiero GT. So you might be wondering, why is the Fiero GT in here? Blossom, you've never talked about the Fiero GT before. Well, I love the Fiero GT, not because of the car itself. I mean, I think it's a pretty cool car to be fair, but why it makes the Blosspack is because the Fiero GT was the most iconic car from one of my favorite rom-coms, as you may call it, ever to exist. One of my favorite shows ever is How I Met Your Mother, and the main characters, Marshall and Ted, they both drive and share a Pontiac Fiero GT. If you know the show, you know what I mean. If I would walk 500 miles and I would walk 500 more, da 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 da. You know what I mean? I love that show, and this car is, I guess, a prominent figure in the show. It even had its own episode dedicated to it, so I have to have the Pontiac Fiero GT in the Blosspack. Moving on now is the Pontiac Bonneville SSEI. You might be wondering why? Well, Wyatt can tell you why. Bonneville. If you know, you know. Moving on now is the Plymouth Roadrunner 383. This was the first model car I bought with my own money. I remember growing up, I had a bunch of model cars that my mom got for me. Most of them were Mercs, Rolls Royces, Porsches, and Mustangs. But the first one that I ever bought for myself was a Plymouth Roadrunner 383. I bought it from Pike's Place in Seattle, Washington. You might know what's the store I'm talking about. It's a nice little like toy store at the bottom of the fish market, and they sell like a bunch of car models and action figures, and the first one I decided to buy was the Plymouth Roadrunner 383. The main reason, exact same color too, red and black, exact same color, no cap. But the main reason why I bought the Plymouth Roadrunner 383 was because I wanted to buy a 1969 Charger, but they didn't have one. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna go for the next best thing. What else is Mopar and also has an F body? And that was the Plymouth Roadrunner 383. So I went with that, and because of that, it makes the list. Moving on is a Nissan Skyline Hardtop 2000 GTR. It's like my favorite on-road Japanese car besides the R32. Next up we have the Chevrolet Malibu. This one, nothing too special. I mean, it is still very special. It's just less special compared to the other cars in this list. I love the Malibu because it kind of got me into standard tires. When I first started playing Top Drives, I didn't really care about tires. I wanted to collect everything that was fast in a straight line. I wanted all the drags. I wanted all the low 0 to 60s, the performance tire cars. But then I realized, you know what? You need standard tire cars to succeed in the game. And the Malibu was fantastic for the rain. It kind of opened my eyes to a whole new horizon, I guess. And that's why the Malibu is in here. Also, I remember one time when I was in New York, I called an Uber, and my Uber was a Chevrolet Malibu. And I remember telling him, yo man, you got a really awesome car. You know this is RQ19? And he was just like, what? But I love that. I have it archived on my Instagram story. I posted it on my Top Drives Instagram like 2 years ago. Anyway, moving on to Chevrolet Chevelle SS454. What makes this car so special is that it's the first rare I ever maxed, the first rare I ever collected and capped as well. 5.40 to 60, 57 handling, 130 top speed. So I'm pretty sure that this car is close to 1,400 days old by now. So fantastic little machine. And last but not least, of course, the Dodge Charger RT, baby. I had to put it in here. This was like the main car. Like, this has to be in the Blosspack. This is the Blosspack. 1969 Dodge Charger RT, my baby, my favorite car of all time. It's been that way for more than 10 years, since 2010. So this has been my favorite car of all time for 11 years, and I really want to get this when I grow up. I love this car. You guys know this already. I hoard this in my garage. So the Dodge Charger RT has to be in the Blosspack. Anyway, let's move on to super rares. We have 10 super rares. Yes, you are seeing this correctly. The Volkswagen Atlas, baby! I hate this car. I hate the color. I hate the color of super rare because yellow is my most hated color, and the color of the Atlas, this kind of greenish yellow, reminds me of literal puke. It also reminds me of my most hated like medicine that I had to take growing up. Like, I remember when I was a kid and I was sick with the flu, not the flu, but when I was sick with the cold, I was always prescribed like this really disgusting tasting medicine. I mean, all medicine tastes disgusting, but this one tasted the worst, and it was in this like off yellow color, and it was exactly the color of this Atlas. One of my most hated things aside from that medicine was fish oil. I'm not sure if you know this. I mean, honestly, if you're Asian, you probably know what I'm talking about, but like, you know when you're like a kid and your parents always force you to like take fish oil and like what's the other thing Asian parents always force you to do? Play the piano. Those two things, right? So fish oil was the kind of, it's like vitamin. You can search it up. It's like this vitamin that you take as a kid to like boost your immune system or whatever. It's supposed to be healthy for you. The thing is though, it tastes absolutely disgusting, man. But I was forced to take that when I was a kid, and the color of this and fish oil was basically the same. It was disgusting. Like olive oil is a nice color. Fish oil, not so much. But I have to put the Atlas in the Blosspack. I have to. It's become a meme of my channel. It's a thing where my patrons, and when they watch the stream, my viewers, when they see me unpack this car, they kind of laugh because they know how much I hate it. So yeah, I have to put in the Volkswagen Atlas. Also, it was besides the the decision was between the Volkswagen Atlas and the, what was it? The Renault like C6, V6, whatever that thing is called. And I'm not putting that Renault in my pack. So I'm going with the Volkswagen Atlas instead. Moving on is the Subaru Legacy. Nothing too much to say about this. It's the oldest car I have in my garage. Full stop. Next up is the Porsche 911 S 2.7. This car won me my first ever Tri-Series Legendary. It won me the Porsche GT1 road car because if I remember correctly, I used 3. I literally used 3 of these, and back in the day this car was rare, okay? But that was because the finals was like all snow or something like that, and like literally only one player in our bracket had like the Porsche Cayenne or Macan. Remember, this is like 2017, like early 2018, so not a lot of people had a bunch of Cayennes and Macans laying around. Moving on is Plymouth Superbird. I talked earlier about the Dodge Monaco being tags, and he was the agent to my favorite character of all time, the King. Well, the King was modeled after the Plymouth Superbird, obviously, driven by Richard Petty, number 43. I love this car, man. Obviously, if you don't know, it's also basically just a Dodge Charger. It's a Dodge Charger with a big wing and a pointy nose, and I love this car. 185 top speed, that is wrong, by the way. This thing hits 200, 4.80 to 60, and it should have better MRI than it does in the game. But yeah, the Plymouth Superbirds, it's kind of sad because I forget that this car is in the game, because like the Miura P400 is just better, which is a shame, because the Superbird is the better car. No one is going to tell me different. Moving on is the Mercedes-Benz 190e Evo. This is a poster car for me. This alongside with the 560 SEC and the 420 SEL. I love Mercedes-Benz, and I think you guys know this already. This was my poster car growing up, alongside with a lot of other poster cars, okay? But this was one of them, and that's why it has to be in the list. Moving on is the Rambo Lambo, baby. One reason and one reason alone. It's the Rambo Lambo. Moving on, obviously, we have the Jaguar D-Type. You know, the D-Type Army. I have to honor the D-Type Army. Although it doesn't exist anymore because it got replaced by the Charger RT Army, I still have to respect the D-Type. It is indeed my favorite Jag ever made. And I have to make sure, if you search up Jaguar D-Type online, that isn't my favorite Jaguar D-Type. You need to search up Jaguar D-Type Long Nose. The Long Nose version is my favorite D-Type. Anyway, moving on now, of course, we have the God, the Ford Flex. God bless the Ford Flex. I love this car. Needs no introduction. Has to be in the Blosspack. And of course, the Cadillac ELR as well. Not my favorite car in real life, but one of my favorite super rares in the game. I have 6. Yeah, I'm kind of crazy like that, but also it's like one of the best cars for clubs, so I kind of need it. Moving on is the Abarth 124 Spider. This car carried me through the Yellowbird, it's Italian Yellowbird, so because of that, I have to honor it. It's also like one of my best Italian super rares in the game, and I like how the car looks. So, you know what? Props to this car, man. Props to this car. We have 13 ultra rares. I think this video is going to be pretty long, so I'm going to blitz through the ultra rares. First one, Volvo V90 T6. Why? Because it won me 3 prize cars, including the Viper GTSR. Next up, Roof BTR. I have 5 of these max. It's one of my favorite ultra rares in the game, modeled after my favorite generation of Porsche. And look at picture, it has cool jet plane behind it. Next up, Porsche 911 Turbo Martini. Once again, like the D-Type, I must honor it because it is one of my favorite Porsches of all time. I love Martini livery, and I have 6 of them max because I was like, you know what, I really want to hoard the Martini, but then I was like, you know what, the Martini actually isn't that good of an ultra rare, so I don't want to hoard it anymore. So I started hoarding the BTRs instead. So now, as I'm recording this video, I have 5 BTRs max and 6 Turbo Martinis max. I've never fused the BTR before. I have fused Martinis before, however. Next up, Nissan Skyline GTR. You know how I said earlier that the 2000 GT was my second favorite Japanese car of all time that was road legal? Well, the R32 is my favorite Japanese car of all time that is road legal, and that's why it makes the list. It's also one of my favorite Japanese ultras in the game, and I mean, I think it looks beautiful. The original Godzilla. In fact, it's quite boxy, and that's why I like it. It reminds me of a muscle car. Moving on is the Mercedes-AMG S63. This car is just big cool. It just oozing coolness. Although the picture is wrong, this isn't the 2011 model, but I do love the S63 nonetheless. Moving on is the Lotus Elite Sport 135. This is the campaign car. I've had this forever in my garage. I have 3 of them max, and it's probably one of my most raced ultra rares in my garage, period. Moving on is the Jaguar XJ 5.0 V8. First of all, the main reason for adding this car was I needed some standard tire representation in my pack, and I was looking at all the standard tire cars in the game, and I was just like, I don't like any of them, to be honest. So I picked my favorite. And my favorite standard tire ultra rare is the Jaguar XJ 5.0 V8. I think it's cool. It's kind of like the British version of the S63. I like cool black saloons, business cars. They're cool. I mean, obviously, considering I lived in New York for like 3 years, I'm used to seeing these all over the place. And that's probably why. It reminds me of New York. Moving on is the Ford Sierra RS 500. This is like the epitome of the Blossom hot take. It's like one of the trashiest ultra rares in the game, but I like it, and I will never condone it because I think the MRA is decent in its niche, which is 1980s British. It's also medium and has decent handling, and so I'm gonna stand by this car, Chief. I like it. It's not even the worst ultra rare you're gonna see here because, as you can see, we have the Dodge Nitro RT. This car needs no introduction, okay? I got this car in July of 2020 after not getting it for like the first 2 years, and I remember losing my shit over this. It's also a 6.9 car, haha. I should have posted this video yesterday because yesterday was 6.9. But anyway, moving on is the Dodge Charger Daytona. Obviously, I mean, come on, it's pretty obvious. It's a Charger. It's a Charger. It's kind of like this Plymouth Superbird, you know? It's a Charger with a big wing and a long nose. And then we have the Chevrolet Tahoe Custom. Obviously, I talked about this before. I don't love this car in real life, but what it's done to the channel, okay? It is a channel favorite. This thing literally single-handedly, okay, not single-handedly, but I don't think if I didn't have this in my hand, I wouldn't be having the Demon today, or at least I wouldn't have the Demon on the first time run, okay? So the Tahoe Custom came in clutch. You needed this car for the Demon finals on the first time, and I'm so happy I got it. We also have the BMW M5. It's one of my favorite ultra rares ever, one of my oldest ultra rares in my garage. I'm pretty sure this is the first ever ultra rare I maxed in my garage, so it's a pretty old boy, and I maxed it 332 as well because, you know, I love my drag cars. And then last but not least, we have the BMW M3. You know how earlier I said that the Nitro and I think what was the other kind of, the RS 500 weren't the only useless ultra rares you're gonna see? Yeah, the BMW M3. I love this, man. The E36 M3. It's one of my favorite BMWs of all time. In fact, there are a lot of BMWs in my pack. I'm just realizing this now, but get ready to see more in the epic ranks. There are 10 epics from the pack. The first one is the 996 model, I guess. The 996 generation of 911 is my favorite generation of all time. So yeah, the Porsche 911 GT2, man, I love this thing. The fried egg headlights. Moving on though is the Mitsubishi Lancer Evo, whatever number that is. I think it's a 9. It could be a 9, may not be a 9, maybe it's a 7, I don't know. But the main reason why I have this in here is because this was kind of like my front runner. It was like the pioneer in my garage. Back in 2017, I remember getting this super early on in the game. This thing won me daily events. This thing got me first place in the daily events. It's also like my, I think, second. It's my second or maybe even first. I'm not sure what my first ever maxed epic is. It's either this or the Camaro Z28. It might even be this because I remember, like, I was like, you know what, this car is actually better than the Camaro Z28. So yeah, I love this car, man. I love the picture as well. Not as much as the Jumpy boy, but I don't have sentimental value to the Jumpy boy. You might know what I'm talking about, the other Lancer Evo, you know, the one that's jumping. But this one I definitely have sentimental value for, so I love this car. It has to be in the Blosspack. Next up is the Mercedes-AMG S65. Now, if you're wondering why this is in the Blosspack, you might remember that pack opening I had with Sarah, where we got an epic and we both lost our minds. If you know, you know, it had to be in here. It was a monumental moment in my channel. Next up is the Dodge Viper SRT10. This thing won me 3 prize cars. I also have 3 of them. 2 of them are maxed. So this car obviously likes me. So because you like me, I like you. Okay? Perfect relationship. Next up is the Charger Juiced. Now the Charger Juiced, now not much of a meme of this. This was like kind of like the wide body of American Frontier, as in I wanted this Dodge the most, but I never said it because I knew that if I ever said it, I would never get it, kind of like the wide body. So I never said it, and then we got it super early, and I was really happy about that. So I'm really happy. If you don't know the Dodge Charger Juice, fun fact about this, what makes this thing so amazing is that inside the Dodge Charger Juice is an SRT V10 Dodge Viper engine. Basically, this was the concept Hellcat. This was Dodge already showing us that they wanted to make a saloon that went balls deep down the track, okay? So this was kind of like, in my opinion, the front runner for the Hellcats, and I love this so much, and I'm so happy to have it in my garage. Moving on, obviously, is the wide body of the wide body. You know how like the Charger Juice was the wide body of American Frontier? Well, this was just the wide body because it is a wide body, and obviously I have it now. Two of them, one of them max. This had to be in the Blosspack. I'm just... Today, until this day, okay, it's been 6 months since my birthday. Wow, it's been 6 months since my birthday. Almost 6 months, I guess. I still go into my garage and I look at this and I'm just like, ha, I have it now. And I just smile at that, you know? But yeah, moving on is the Dodge Challenger SRT Hellcat. There are gonna be a lot of Dodges in here, trust me. Dodge Challenger SRT Hellcat, you guys know this. This was a meme in my garage. This was like, for some reason, I could only unpack this. I had like 8 of these at one point until I decided to put a limiter on it and be like, okay, 8 is too much. I'm gonna get rid of 2 and I'm just gonna keep it at 6. So I have 6 of these, 3 maxed. Moving on is the M3 GTS. This is the first ever epic prize car I ever won. And then once again, another BMW. Speaking about BMWs, we have more! Because the BMW M2 delimited. This is my favorite BMW of all time. And a BMW 740D. Wow. I have a lot of BMWs in the Blosspack, don't I? I remember when I was making these, I didn't even realize how many BMWs I had in here until I'm recording this video. But yes, this is the first ever epic I pulled from a ceramic pack, and it's standard tires, and it carried me through a lot of events. Okay, standard tires, 4-wheel drive, medium ground clearance, diesel as well. Fantastic car, amazing picture, good looking car as well. So it had to be in the Blosspack. Anyway, let's move on to legendaries. Now, there are 9 legendaries to choose from. I'm pretty sure you guys know what some of them are going to be. First one, Porsche 911 GT2 RS. Now, I really wanted to max out this legendary. Since 2017, I've wanted to max out this car. I love it. It won me the 918. It won me the Urus. It could have won me the Citroen GT, but once again, I couldn't win it because my cars were too good, and this was one of them. I have it in my garage at 122, and I'll probably max it out one day. Not soon, but it's definitely on the list. Next up, Lotus Evora Sport 410. Now, you guys know this already. I think this is the nicest picture in the game for a car, and also it won me the Bugatti Chiron Sport, so it had to be in here. Next up on the list is obviously Blosspack. Blosspack had to make the cut. It's the first ever legendary that I maxed that wasn't American or Dodge. I know I have the 959, but the 959 came afterwards, and I have the 911 Turbo, but you have to remember the 911 Turbo, I maxed it when it was an epic, and then it went up to legend. So this was the first ever legend I maxed that wasn't American and or Dodge. And obviously Blosspack won me the Viper GTSR, as well as a whole, I think it won me the Pikes Peak. Yeah, it won me the Pikes Peak as well. So fantastic machine. Next up is Syracuse. Obviously I had to put Syracuse in here. The first ever legend I speed maxed. I maxed this thing literally in 2 minutes. You might remember that from that unholy video or super holy video, depending on how you want to see things. But I love Syracuse. Next up is Hollywood. Obviously the first legend I've ever maxed in the game. Love this car. Love it so much. 98% win ratio, almost 6,000 races. I have it all memorized, man. I love Hollywood. Next up is obviously my Damon, my baby. Obviously, I named it Blossom Jr. This is honestly my endgame car. You know how everyone has an endgame car? This is my endgame car. Like, I can just, I can die in peace. I can rest in peace, knowing that I have this in my Top Drives garage. This was it. I remember, if I didn't win this on the first time, that would have changed everything. I probably most likely would have quit the game if I didn't win the demon. So really happy that I got it. Next up is the Bugatti Chiron Sport. I mean, I had to, right? This car sent me to hell and back. I stayed awake for 36 hours straight, playing every single ticket, pulling my hair out, trying to win this car. So yes, the Bugatti Chiron Sport makes the cut. And last but not least, the last car in the Blosspack is the Aston Martin DBS Superleggera. Now here's the pretty interesting thing about the Blosspack. I have every single car in the Blosspack besides the DBS Superleggera, but I had to put it in here, man. This is my favorite Aston Martin of all time. This is my favorite car of all time that isn't American. I would say it's probably tied with the 959, which isn't even in here. So there you go. I wanted to keep the legendaries at 9, that's why. So there you go. That is the entire list. I guess honorable mention to the 959. I feel bad that I'm not putting it in here now, but I think we already have enough cut rate legendaries in here, you know what I mean? But anyway guys, that is the Blosspack. Let me know what you think of it. Would you open this pack if it ever became real? Obviously, I had to make sure that this pack wasn't too OP, so there's no super light, there's no Furai. I mean, I don't even have a Furai anyway. There's no 962, none of that. These are cars that mean a lot to me, and you know what? If this came to the game, I would open all 15. Straight up. I mean, obviously, right? I would. Even though I have every car in here already besides the DBS Superleggera, I want more of the others, you know? I want more of the wide body, more of the juice, more of the GT2. Give me more Hollywoods. Why not? Anyway, guys, let me know what you think about this video. It's gonna be a pretty long one. I'm sorry. But anyway, hope you guys have a good day. Remember, stay safe, wash your hands, and blossom out. Peace. I bring the toast in the back and we going berserk with the guns on the rack, and we taking account to the sound of the crack. Running from us with the pop and the, cause we're making the moves and the sounds of P. Calling the shots, of bitch looking at me, and we taking account to the flow in the back with the drop in the cash. You know this ain't a prank. Moving like water, talking with fire. I'm back undercover to mama's inside. Keep riding the flames like a man on a mission. Rejected again, but you better go listen. Pop up at Billy, run up the Billy. My face on the boards and you all gonna see me. I whip my wrist to look dicey as Yachty. Flexing the club, something sincerely Louis. Hey.